Hello, everybody. So we are live right now. Today, we're going to be discussing, is religion necessary? It's going to be featuring Godless Engineer versus myself. As we know, Godless Engineer has a lot of subscribers. He is a famous skeptic and atheist. I'm going to be defending the view that religion is generally necessary societally and individually, and he will take the negative. So without further ado, let's begin. That's my opening statement. Okay, I think religion is necessary societally and individually. Throughout evolutionary history, animals assumed meaning in life, meaning they had a meaning structure, which was they believed their only goal was to live, reproduce, survive, that kind of thing. But about 45 to 50,000 years ago, the concept of religion and meaning had to come along at some point, because in some sense we developed an evolutionary functional trait which helped us kind of see reality. It caused us to think scientifically, religiously, and that kind of thing. Since behavioral modernity, generally, religion came along because we lost some of our animal instincts, and throughout that time we had to develop other kinds of meaning structures because we knew why live, why reproduce, why survive. Those questions sort of arose. Because back in the day, before 50,000 years ago, humans, they didn't ask questions about the meaning of life. It only seemed to arise during when consciousness came around. So, because if you don't care about your survival of reproduction, then you're just going to get ruled out by natural selection. So we had to rely on some kind of history-predicated morality, or what we call religion, to help us alive, to help us away from mental illness. When we stray from these evolutionary meaning structures, then we end up in serious problems. So take Baumeister 2005, who argues that systems of meaning, especially religion, were biological designations created through evolution. According to a study done without goals and meaning in zoological organisms, due to evolutionary and biological circumstances, they become apathetic, inactive, and psychopathological. And this is ubiquitous amongst all people in general, amongst all species. Another study confirmed this fact once again. The belief in general meaninglessness of life leads to lethargy, mental illness, and cold indifference. There are countless other studies which confirm the unfortunate fact about nihilistic beliefs, such as Maddie 1970, Holland and Resnick 2005. The purpose that is seen through life depends on religious structures and tradition structures, such as Christianity. And when purpose and meaning are crucial in order to prevent complete apathy and meaninglessness towards life. For some reason, we've developed this conception in philosophy, and that's whatever is metaphysically true must be your epistemological beliefs. So if X is true, then you must believe X. But I reject that hypothesis. I think in some cases, we must believe the opposite of a cold, hard truth. Sometimes cold, hard truths are absolutely unbeneficial. So it's kind of red pill, blue pill. I mean, you're tempted to take the red pill, but sometimes you have to take the blue pill as well, as it sometimes leads to bad circumstances, such as the symptoms I've listed above, like lethargy, inactivity, psychopathology. And innumerable amount of studies have found that, again, belief in lack of meaning in life, such as lead to depression, like Newcomb and Bedler 1986, Lester and Badger 1991, Phillips 1980, Riff 1989, Chamberlain 1992, Flannery 1995. I could go on. But it seems to be that that it makes sense why the main symptoms of depression are feelings of hopelessness, pessimism, and worthlessness, as the National Institute of Mental Health notes. Nihilism and mental illness are closely related, and the probability of mental illness rises under a nihilistic framework of beliefs. This also makes sense given the really sharp rise of suicides by 25% since 1999. And this is due to the fact that we now have the internet. Now information is flowing like crazy. And now we know that certain things like religion, now we have arguments against religion that is more clearly seen. Throughout the internet, atheists and various different people can post information to there. And people are being strongly influenced by this. Now, of course, this is correlation, but I've already showed meta-analysis which confirm this fact. So, and again, multiple studies have also found that religion is associated with lower depression, perceived quality of life, and satisfaction. And other studies have found this. When people were high on mushrooms or LSD, those who experienced mystical experiences sustained significant personal meaning and spiritual significance, according to a study done by R.R. Griffiths and W.A. Richards.
30
In
seconds.
multiple surveys conducted on those who claimed to see God encountering experiences, and then this was through psychedelic experiences or not, the vast majority said they experienced strong persisting changes in life satisfaction, purpose, and meaning, according to a study done yet again by R.R. Griffiths and Roland Hurwitz. So in general, people who experience some form of mystical or spiritual experience, which causes conversion into religious belief, report much higher spiritual significance and meaning in their life. And this evidence clearly indicates that religion is one of the best means in order to deal with meaning crises and provide a subjective meaning and objective meaning in life. This is also confirmed by another study done on the existential function of intrinsic religiousness.
Greg.
It found that with intercultural tolerance and afterlife anxiety, those who had it generally tended to report lower levels of depression. What?
You need to round up. Your time's up.
Yeah. Can I just get one more statement?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. So, and finally, studies have found that animals like chimpanzees, which have traditions and cultures and that kind of thing, chimpanzees generally always have tradition, and it's always been a clear component to their society. And it's definitely important to evolutionary history. We can't let go of these meaning structures. These meaning structures are necessary, and getting rid of them would make no sense. Thank you.
All right. That's the end of your time, Greg. And now would be whenever Godless Engineer starts.
Really quickly, before we go into Godless Engineer, I think Greg went a little bit over his time.
Yeah. It was like 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I don't think it'd be necessary, but you want to add that to like the discussion portion? Or how long will the discussion portion be?
30 seconds is not going to impact the discussion portion that much. So yeah, Godless.
Yeah, we don't have to be that strict, guys.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
But, how long will the discussion portion be anyway?
I'm not sure.
You want to do 45 minutes?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay.
All right, so.
All right.
Godless Engineer.
Okay, so go with your opening statement, and then we'll get into discussion.
All right. So first, I want to say thank you to Greg for setting up the discussion between the both of us. I really appreciate to talk about these kinds of topics, and I'm so glad that you're kind of getting started on standing up and using your voice at such a young age. And so I'm I guess normally I'm a bit harsher in my videos, but trust me, I'm not that harsh whenever just talking between us. So tonight we're going to be discussing whether or not religion is necessary. And my first question is, necessary for what? Is it necessary for a person? Is it necessary for society? If religion is necessary for any aspect, we should be able to see the effects of religion not only on people, but also in society. If religion is necessary for society, then we should see less religious societies doing worse in multiple categories, including poverty, violent crime, infant mortality, and corruption. If religion is necessary for individual people, we should see that more religious people are doing better off in general. Those that are less religious should be doing worse on the whole. I'm going to demonstrate to you that highly religious societies tend to be worse off in all categories. Also, I will show you that there is no clear answer on how religion affects a person's individual well-being. Due to how religion operates within group and out-group thinking, this can be easily explained using that concept. I'm not going to be arguing that religion is the cause of these problems, though. I'm merely demonstrating that religion is not necessary for a peaceful and productive society or individual. First, let's take a look at how religion affects societies around the world. It's been empirically shown that countries with the highest rates of religiosity, some of the top ones being Nigeria, Mexico, Brazil, etc., also have the highest rates of poverty, violent crime, infant mortality, and corruption. Looking at poverty, there is a high correlation between highly impoverished nations and religion. Most likely, without any real way of escaping poverty, they use religion as an escape from their reality. Even though the USA has a mostly religious population, there are still segments of the country that exhibit these same characteristics seen in impoverished countries. Followers of Christ are a sect of highly religious Christians in Idaho. They only practice faith healing and have an infant mortality rate astronomically higher than the entire state of Idaho. A study was hold on, I had to adjust. A study was done on counties with higher numbers of religious fundamentalist Christians, and it shows a much higher infant mortality rate due to the rejection of education and science. These would be highly religious individuals who should be doing far better than lesser religious counterparts, but they aren't. Mississippi is reported to be one of the most religious states in the USA. Mississippi has a child abuse fatality rate twice that of the highly secular New Hampshire. Across the board, we empirically see this trend of more religiosity. The more religious a local community is, the worse off it is. Next, let's take a look at violent crime rates. Surely more secular societies have higher rates of crime. This is far from the truth. Highly religious societies like Colombia, Mexico, El Salvador, and Brazil have the highest rates of homicide. As societies become more and more secular, the rate of violent crime deteriorates. And if religion is necessary for society, why do highly religious countries tend to be more violent and deathly? This strong correlation suggests that less religious society is, the safer it is. The safest nations in the world, being Canada, Sweden, Iceland, Norway, etc., are all highly secularized.
1 minute.
Now, I'm not. Is that time?
No, 1 minute left.
1 minute. I'm not making the argument that secularized societies alleviate the issues that we have discussed. I'm making the argument that the correlation between religion and society does not indicate that religion is necessary for a peaceful and flourishing society. In fact, it seems like religion is used to mask the ills of a society, to give people a faux view of their reality. They can ignore their reality for a beautiful lie that religion tells them. Now let's look at the necessity of religion for an individual person. This particular dynamic is still undergoing research. If religion is necessary for people, we should see a unanimous trend away from secular lifestyle towards a religious lifestyle in several areas. We don't see that at all. In fact, in one study done in 2006 measured the effectiveness of prayer in post-op recovery of heart surgery patients. The results showed that patients receiving prayers had higher rates of post-op complications, but otherwise there was no difference. Time?
Yeah, so you can round up.
Okay. So we'll get into the discussion. Okay, so two things I'd like to say. Firstly, as far as secularism goes, it can be religious because I'm not necessarily talking about a theocracy. And as far as individual rates, even though you talk about secular societies having higher crime rates, it has been found that individuals with higher religious saliency is less likely to be associated with criminal activities. And those who attend religious services are less involved in criminality. And meta-analysis have found that those who engage in orthodox religious beliefs are less likely to engage in criminal behaviors than not. And those who believe in hell also have decreased crime rates. This is kind of individually. Society. Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on. I don't mean to interrupt there, I guess I technically do. Why is it that most of our prison population is Christian if they're not, if religious people tend to not be like criminals?
Because one is talking about religious saliency. The other one is if you ascribe to religious belief. You can ascribe to religious belief and not have high salience. I'm specifically talking about those who value religion in life. Those who value religion in life are not the type of people I'm talking about.
Okay. Well, so the study that I found, which I believe was published, let me check. It was in 2015. The study that I found shows that these highly religious nations are ones that report high religious saliency, as you're putting it, and those are also the most violent nations. So this would be the nations with the most amount of people that report that they are religious or have a high religious affliction. So I mean, these are empirical numbers. Are you suggesting that these societies, because they're not theocracies, that means that they're not highly religious?
No, that's not what I'm saying. When we're talking about countries that have that's something called the Streisand effect, which is that when you push something, that thing comes up more. When you push Christianity or when you push Islam or whatever, then then atheism comes out more. I'm not specifically talking about that. I'm specifically talking about societies that have that not necessarily societies itself that establish high religious saliency, because that leads to the opposite effect. I'm talking about individuals themselves that compromise a society or in and of themselves have high religious saliency, tend to report lower depression, tend to report lower crime rates, and a general sense of meaning in life.
Well, I mean, we can throw around studies all day, because the individual effect of religion on a person is not that well researched. So, I mean, from what I can tell, the studies surrounding that particular topic are a mixed bag depending on where you look. I found a study in Puerto Rico where it was actually the atheists that came out on top in a number of areas as far as health goes. But for the most part, there was literally no difference between atheists and religious people, on a number of different health areas. So, I mean, like I said, we could throw out studies,
These are meta-analyses.
everywhere.
I don't mean to interrupt, sorry, but I'm giving meta-analysis. Like on the study hierarchy, those are the highest. The meta-analysis is on lower rates of depression. It's not just, it's correlated with lower depression. It's like this has been researched neuroscientifically and with meta-analysis. And well, that's with depression. And with crime rates, it was just a meta-analysis in general on crime in different areas. And generally speaking, those who reported religious saliency, high religious saliency, which is those who say, I strongly believe in religion, and religion is a strong value in my life, tend to commit crimes much less.
Okay, well, can you please tell me why highly religious societies tend to be more violent, have higher, like all of the categories that I listed? Why does it seem like highly religious societies are the least peaceful societies?
Well, highly religious societies tend to be the least peaceful due to different factors, such as bad religion, meaning religion that forces crime on infidels, such as Islam, for instance. And the second would be that these are again, as I talked about, the Streisand effect. Again, societies that force Christianity or force Islam or force whatever religion tend to have higher atheists and secret atheists in return. When you push
secret atheists.
Of course. Like, why do you think there are reportedly no gay or lesbian Muslims when that makes no sense? Of course, there would be gay and lesbian Muslims, but they don't. But 0% of Muslims claim to be gay or lesbian. And that doesn't mean that they're not gay or lesbian.
So, I mean, how do you explain the Catholic Church then? I mean, do you think that there are secret gays in the Catholic Church?
I mean, of course, there's likely homosexuals in the Catholic Church, but who haven't come out. I think it's
I was talking about priests specifically. I mean, obviously there are LGBTQ priests, but typically they are shunned from the Catholic Church. I feel like saying that there are secret atheists out there is just something that you cannot prove. I mean, we can speculate all day, but you just simply can't prove that.
By the way, just to refer to your point about homosexuality and Catholic priests, in fact, those who claim to be homophobic tend to actually have higher homosexual arousal. I mean, and this is again the Streisand effect that I'm talking about. When you try and hide something, when you try and say something is bad, and you're like, no, it's bad. Hold on, don't worry about that. Don't think about that. People start thinking about that thing more. So again, these are correlation. Again, individually, it's been found that those who report higher orthodox beliefs tend to have lower crime rates. So I mean, I'd be really interested to see that particular study if you could like, I don't know, post it in the chat or something. Yeah. Because if that were the case on an individual level, then highly religious societies should not be the most violent or the most crime ridden. But what we find is the exact opposite. The highly religious societies, which I know that you just blame on bad religion, which I don't understand. If we're arguing for religion being a prime component of, being a necessity for like a decent, peaceful society, right. I mean, how do you determine bad religion? But these are correlation. This is not causation. I'm giving you meta-analysis here. By the way, I posted it in the chat. It's posted in the chat. Mr. Parker posted it. And I also posted it in the comment section, which is that which is that in terms of Handbook of Crime Correlates, those who report orthodox beliefs always have lower crime rates. I mean, I don't think you can access it right here, right now, but I have the citation. So again, when you look at the study hierarchy, meta-analyses are always higher than cohort studies and studies that are merely based on correlation. You could correlate anything you want. You could correlate X with completely unrelated Y. It doesn't necessarily matter.
Okay, but
I don't know.
do you have complementary statistics about those without religion and how they commit more crime? Like I feel like there needs to be some kind of contrast here, because you have one statistic that says that more religiosity means that you're less likely to commit crime. Well, then the opposite should be true for those without religion. The less religion you have, the more likely you are to commit crime.
Yeah, you do have that. It both says that those who have more orthodox beliefs tend to have lower crime rates, and those who have those who don't report low religious saliency or aren't religious at all don't tend to commit higher crime rates. Of course, this varies between individuals.
Wait, they don't commit more crime?
No, they commit more crime. They have higher crime rates.
Then again, I ask, in the United States, where we're a highly religious country, why is it that that our prisons are primarily filled with Christians?
Because we have more Christians than atheists in this country.
Well, yes, we do, but it's a disproportionate percentage compared to our overall population for each group.
Well,
the overwhelming majority in the population of prisons are Christian. So it doesn't seem to make sense that if you are religious, you're less likely to commit a crime.
Well, again, self-identified religiosity is not the same thing as high religious saliency. That's the distinction between devoted and nominal, meaning devoted people or more orthodox people have lower crime rates. Just because you identify as a Christian, that doesn't mean that therefore you will have high religious saliency or replace religion as a primary factor in your life. In fact, I would say
it seems like a no choice
amongst Christianity that people who are Christian tend to have lower religious saliency. But theoretically, you could be Orthodox Christian in the same sense that you could be an Orthodox Jew, an Orthodox Muslim, an Orthodox Buddhist, or whatever. So,
or like a new independent fundamentalist Baptist.
They have pretty high religious saliency, as far as I know.
Yeah, so they would be less violent, even though they are the ones that want to murder and kill like people of the LGBTQ community. Does that seem less violent to you? Because it seems pretty violent to me.
Right, but these people, not all independent fundamentalist Baptists necessarily believe this, and they're a very small population of the country. This is kind of like a I feel like this is sort of a no true Scotsman fallacy.
No. I'm not saying that they're not. No, see, I'm not the one doing a no true Scotsman. You're the one that's doing a no true Scotsman with secret atheists and all this other stuff.
And the secret
hold on. What I'm saying right now is that new independent fundamentalist Baptists, it's part of their theology that homosexuals should be rounded up and killed.
Well, they tend to have lower crime rates. Of course, some of them have terrible beliefs. I've had quarrels with Guzman 1611 on this, but of course, they generally do tend to have lower crime rates. Just because they say let's kill gay people or this and that, that doesn't mean that's just a belief. That doesn't mean that they still have lower crime rates as far as Christianity goes. Fundamentalist Baptists always tend to have lower crime rates. Just because they have really screwed up beliefs in that sense, it doesn't mean that their crime rates are somehow higher.
Okay.
Again, the individual beliefs are different from the statistics that I'm bringing up, and I kind of want to get into the meaninglessness. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no. Well, I mean, still, you haven't actually answered me about why highly religious countries are more violent if individuals that are highly religious are less violent or less likely to commit a crime. For one thing, I don't know this Handbook of Crime Correlates. I don't know anything about this. I've never seen it. That doesn't mean that it's wrong, but I also have to question whether or not are their methods. But like again, I said I don't know. I haven't looked that up. But what I do know is that highly religious societies tend to fare worse. Huh?
Hold on. So I think my computer's no. Okay, now we're back. So sorry, can you repeat that last point again? Because you froze and my computer kind of slowed down. So could you say that
Okay.
again?
Well, my point is that the fact that the more religious a society is means that or at least empirically, it's shown that they're usually more violent. They have higher infant mortality rates. They have higher poverty. All of these things are empirically shown. So I don't know how they assess the saliency of the individuals. If it was self-reported, I really don't know how you can trust that, because I know at one point in time I would have written down that I was highly religious, but I really wasn't. And it also the fact that those things are contradictory. The less crime, less likely to commit a crime for someone that's highly religious versus highly religious.
Very lower crime rates, much lower crime rates.
Well, versus the crime rates of the society in general.
Okay, but this is okay again. But how do you know that that is due to the religion? Like I'm showing that due to religion, people commit lower crime rates. This is meta-analysis. This is of cohort studies. You're just showing me correlation. You're just showing me that religious countries tend to have high rates of crime rates. There's no link between where religion plays in that. There could be many other factors in that.
Well, no, right. And again, like I said in my opening, and I reiterated near the end of my opening, if I would have finished, is that I'm not trying to suggest that religion is the cause of these ills. What I'm saying is strictly the idea that religion is necessary for a society to be peaceful, or for even an individual to commit less crime. What I'm saying is that those societies are on the end, like the highly religious societies tend to be more of those negative aspects, while the irreligious societies are far more peaceful and less violent. So if religion is necessary for a peaceful society with less crime, then we should not see that distinction in the real world. What you're doing is giving me these meta-analyses of different studies, and you're telling me that people who are more religious or self-report this high religious saliency or whatever, you're telling me that they are less likely to commit crimes, but all of the other information seems to contradict it. So I'm a little skeptical of the findings of that meta-analysis, pure and simply because of the fact that we see most of our prison population being highly religious, and then societies that are highly religious being the most violent. See, you have to understand it from my point of view, that those things right there cause me not to take that meta-analysis at its word, that it actually successfully came to that conclusion based on the evidence. Well, I'm just saying that I'm skeptical of it.
Okay, but this is confirmed by other studies too. Those who have prime belief in moral realism tend to donate twice as high as those who don't believe in moral realism and espouse morally relativistic views. Other studies have found this. It doesn't seem to be controversial. I mean, amongst countries, sure, yes. In countries, there's a correlation. Again, this is correlation. We don't know if this is religion or not, but even if we accept that it does, individually speaking, those who have high religion always usually commit much less crime. And I think the main point here wasn't necessarily that of crime. That is, again, as you said, that is a very hot topic. We can't make any conclusions based off of that. And you could be rightfully skeptical of the meta-analysis. The main point was on depression and how people handle meaninglessness. And existentially speaking, those who have a function of religiosity tend to have lower depression levels, and generally tend to cope with crisis better. As I showed, those who have mystical experiences while either high on psilocybin mushrooms or not, tend to report higher sustained personal meaning and significance. The main issue here is in regards to existentialism and meaninglessness, how people cope with meaninglessness. Crime rates, we could have a 90-hour discussion on that. I think as far as the society, as far as individually speaking goes, I believe that religion is generally beneficial to society in this sense. So beneficial to society. It's beneficial to society, not administered from society.
How is it beneficial to society, like at large?
Because society is comprised of individuals, and individuals that that have higher religious levels, that compromises a whole society. Just because we have a political government that let's just say, according to fundamentalist Baptist Christians, should execute homosexuals. That's different from people believing in meaning, people being scared of hell, that kind of thing, right?
You think it's a good thing people are scared of hell?
I don't think that it's necessarily good, but in regards to lower crime rates, those who prime fear in hell tend to establish low crime rates. Now, I don't think that should be the only thing, but religious belief in general, placing a high value on religion, is definitely necessary. And those who, again, as I said, those who prime belief in moralism tend to choose charities, donate to charities twice as much.
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't know the statistics for, philanthropic giving. But I mean, I really don't think that philanthropic giving should necessarily correlate to how good a person is. I've known complete buttholes out there that are total crap bag human beings and have given to charities. I really don't think that giving to charity is a very good measurement for how good a person is.
Yeah, but specifically those who were donating to charity were specifically donating to charities where it would help children and help child impoverishment and things like that. Something specific that most would unanimously agree that it would be good to give to that specific charity.
I mean, you can donate to a charity and still be a pedophile.
Yeah, of course, but the vast majority that don't necessarily are generally good people. Would you not agree that those who donate to
I don't know enough to make that statement. I think that's too generalized of a statement. I don't think that somebody giving money to a charity inherently means that they are more likely to be a good person.
Well, yeah, of course, but I'm just saying, in combination with the study on lower crime rates, it makes complete sense why those who report higher levels of religiousness and those who believe in moralism and don't say that it's relativistic always tend to do more morally beneficial activities, which you would agree that lower crime rates would be morally beneficial. So,
okay, you keep harping on the crime rates, but you also don't want to talk about crime rates. So let's talk about crime rates. Can you explain to me why the vast majority of people in the prison system are Christian? I know that there's a small number of atheists in the prison system, but the numbers do not correlate equally to the number of atheists that are in the United States versus the number of religious people that are in the United States.
Again, as I said before, this is a specific thing. Religious saliency is much more specific than just religion. Atheists are a small minority in the U.S., so obviously they would take up less of the prison. And the majority of people, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, are Christian. So again, it's about how much value you place in religion. Whether you just say I'm a Christian and then I place no value into it, because clearly a lot of people are like that.
Okay, well, still the fact that Christians are committing crimes and they do that in the face of being scared of hell. I mean, I feel like that inherently right there shows that religion is not necessary and that this threat of hell is not enough to keep them from doing the crime. So could it be that it's not the threat of hell that sends them there? Because let's be honest, as a Christian, you don't really have a threat of hell. I mean, all you have to do is repent and ask Jesus for forgiveness, and then you don't have to worry about hell anymore.
That's not necessarily all of Christianity. In fact, most don't believe that. That's just a specific branch of Baptist Protestants. Like I, for one, don't believe. I for one believe that good deeds are a necessary trait to going to hell. It's not. I don't like this idea that you just say you believe in God and then boom, you're done. That's a big problem I have with baptism. But again, there's another study, by the way, a 2012 study that showed that belief in hell decreases crime rates. So it clearly does help in some respect.
I seriously doubt that that's the conclusion that the study came to, that a belief in hell prevents those things. I think it would be pretty hard pressed to draw a finite connection between the two. I think that what you're probably really highlighting here is just a correlation doesn't mean causation kind of thing.
Yeah, but
I mean,
it's not just correlation. This was more than that. I think this was a randomized control trial, which would indicate that it's much more than correlation.
No. I mean, that doesn't mean anything as far as correlating the fear of hell to lower crime rates. Because I mean, I really know nothing of the study, so I can't really tell you what the study actually came to the conclusion of.
I can I send it in the private chat? It's called Divergent Effects of Beliefs in Heaven and Hell on National Crime Rates. Yeah, you can take a look into that. So you want to discuss crime rates for another 5 minutes and then move on into the existentialism part?
Well, I mean, I thought that we were already moving on from that, but you seem to keep wanting to move back to the crime rates thing, because I feel like your entire argument relies on that idea that the more religious you are, or at least the bigger a role religion plays in your life, the less likely you are to commit a crime. It seems to be like the crux of your argument.
Yeah, but I actually didn't bring that up in my opening statement. I think this started because, like, you were talking about in high religiosity countries with high religiosity tend to have higher crime rates. But yeah, let's move on into the existentialism part. So since religion is associated with lower depression, with sustained personal meaning and spiritual significance, that wouldn't it be that religion at least should play some role in the individual?
I mean, I think religion does play a role in an individual. My point isn't that you need to get rid of religion, or that religion causes somebody to do something bad. My point is that you don't need religion in order to be a good person or to live a happy life.
Well, it's ingrained in our evolution. We desire meaning structures like religion. We need those religious structures in order to sustain being. Because if we didn't have meaning structures, then we would just be dead right now. That's the difference between humans. Like
no. What you're talking about is just the general, the general fact that we're a societal creature and we develop these societies. That's not necessarily, tied to religion. I think it's just an aspect of our nature as a species to be a societal species. The whole idea of us working together, not killing, our fellow ape, is something that's been ingrained into us for a while, and it's a survival thing. It's not a religious thing. It's a survival thing.
Yeah, but as I pointed out, before 50,000 years ago, before kind of the evolutionary functional trait of consciousness, I hold to the functionalist belief in terms of matter and mind. Before then, we didn't have behavioral modernity. Behavioral modernity is what gave rise to religion. Like, traditions, of course, have been around in chimpanzees, mammals, primates, things like that. But we kind of assumed in order to survive, reproduce, live, et cetera, that we needed to assume that we must reproduce and survive. That was ingrained in our system. But then it no longer became an assumption. It became something that was dependent on historically predicated morality. Then we required again historically predicated morality. So after that,
I think you're confusing. I think what you're confusing is the development of societies with the development of religion. And I do see how you can easily confuse the two, but the development of a society is not the same thing as as whatever group of organisms developing a religion. I mean, we had to work in societies first, and then a religious concept developed in order to explain things that we just don't understand. That's how religion developed.
Yeah,
it wasn't that religion developed and then societies developed. A societal group developed first, and then religion developed afterwards to answer questions that we just didn't have the answer for.
Well, I don't think religion. I think religion likely came before society due to the fact that chimpanzees and other animals have strong traditions. I think that religion as a whole built up as a meaning structure in order to help a species reproduce and survive. It wasn't just we don't know questions, so we're gonna replace. I mean, that was definitely partially it, but the whole point is
that kind of insinuates that organisms that do reproduce and survive need some kind of religious aspect in order to reproduce and survive.
No, they don't, because a functional trait of consciousness appeared 50,000 years ago when behavioral modernity emerged, according to scholars. So that's when religion came about. Before then, there was no religion. We were already assumed that we must reproduce and survive. But of course, humans have existential questions that they need to answer, like what is the meaning of life? Why do I need to reproduce and survive? The why never existed before behavioral modernity. That sounds kind of weird now that we think about it as humans of modern age.
I mean, I don't know. I'm seriously questioning your timeline here that 50,000 years ago is when we first started, questioning.
That's what most scholars believe. 50 to 200,000 years ago is about when religion and behavioral modernity came about.
Yeah, so, it's a very big time scale, though. You're just using one. There's 150,000 years in between there. I mean, to suggest that we were not considering these things before the development of religion, I really don't think that you can make that argument.
You can make that. Why can't you make that argument? Because behavioral
we don't have we simply don't have the evidence to be able to finally distinguish those things. I do agree that religion, or this idea of religion, definitely started long ago, but it seems more logical to me for society to develop first, and then religious concepts would develop, because as we know, we started off in hunter-gatherer groups, and then we were able to move into these larger groups of societies, and then after that point is when religion developed. I mean, it didn't like. There weren't hunter-gatherer groups out there that developed religious sensibilities or religious traditions or religious ideas and then moved into a larger society. It started out with hunter-gatherer groups that were trying to survive, a very in-group, out-group kind of mentality with it. And then once they got to a larger group, where not everybody in the group had to have a job, go out and hunt or gather berries and fruits and all this other stuff in order for their small community to thrive. Once they were able to move into a larger group, that's when religion started to develop. That seems more logical and more cohesive than some kind of religious idea starting first in these small hunter-gatherer groups, where religion, like the idea of religion, has no beneficial concept, or has no beneficial things within a hunter-gatherer group that's nomadic, that isn't large or anything like that. It makes sense that these small groups that we see in other ape cousins of ours, these small groups then developed into larger groups, which then developed religion.
Okay, well, most scholars believe that religion came before behavioral modernity, and among Neanderthals, religion is also found. How do you explain
behavioral modernity in other animals that don't have a concept of religion?
There is no behavioral modernity amongst animals without religion, and even if they did, that would kind of prove my point more, to prove that it's more ingrained evolutionarily in a functional trait. So either way, it's kind of proving my point.
Okay.
So
yeah, I interrupted you, so I'm trying to let you finish.
Okay, so again, religion and behavioral modernity. Scholars are not really sure. Most scholars agree that religion possibly came slightly before that, and Neanderthals, which are a pretty close ancestor of ours, also likely had religion, cremated burials, and more things like that, and beliefs in gods. Religion likely came somewhere about 100,000 years ago. Some like speculated to be 200,000 years ago, which would be far before the time of behavioral modernity. By the way, the number I gave you about 50 to 200,000 was probably incorrect. It's probably more like 50 to 75,000 was when behavioral modernity came. So that would mean that that means that before then it came about, and behavioral modernity pushed that need for history predicated morality to come about. So if it's beneficial in Neanderthals, I don't doubt why it wouldn't be beneficial in hunter-gatherer societies. And also, it doesn't make sense why since 1999 the suicide rates have been rising incredibly since the rise of the internet, which was when information loads came in, and that history predicated morality started to become lost. I think that's what most scholars agree on, in terms of prehistoric scholars.
Well, hold on. You're kind of all over the place because you're talking about behavioral modernity and you're confusing behavioral modernity with, the development of societies and stuff like that. I don't accept that particular the argument that those two things are exactly the same. But then you switch to the the internet emerging and more people starting to commit suicide. I guess I just don't understand the correlation right there. Are you trying to say that the internet makes more atheists and atheists are the ones that are killing themselves more?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, so firstly, I just kind of want to get to the first claim that I made, which is firstly, I just want to say that hunter-gatherer groups, for instance, are not society. Neanderthals aren't society. So clearly religion clearly came before society.
How do they clearly come before society?
Because Neanderthals were religious, and there's no evidence that they had society.
Wait. I guess I just don't understand.
Have society. It's society like humans. They clearly don't have society like humans, and yet they have tradition.
No. I guess I'm not all up on the behavior of Neanderthals, but what kind of religion what kind of religion did they have if they did not have a society in which to live in?
Well, it was likely very primitive kind of religions, like kind of burials with gold on top, or burials with different things, and most scholars agree that they believed in an afterlife. So it's not exactly as advanced as our current religions, but the belief in afterlife and burials is a key element to primitive religion.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, scholars agree on that. Scholars mostly.
I don't care if the scholars could agree on a giant T-Rex that floats around the atmosphere. I really don't care about what the scholars agree on. I'm asking you, how do you know that they had these religious ideas and that they believed in the afterlife?
Okay, so first of all, they put different kinds of elements on them, like gold, diamond, things like that. I don't have the exact elements on me right now, but they put them on top of them when they usually don't. Like burials, for instance, that's the first sign of a religious society. Then it's gold and silver. Then it's putting the gold and silver on top, because why would you put gold and silver on top of dead bodies? It makes no sense unless there's some kind of an afterlife purpose behind it.
Well, how do you know that Neanderthals valued gold and silver?
Because they put them on top of every single dead person.
Okay, I guess I'll have to look into the what we know about the burials of Neanderthals, but I still don't correlate the idea of traditions to religion. You can have traditions and not have religion.
Yeah, that was just that was not even religion. That was kind of pre-religion. Chimpanzees having complex. Actually, I'm not joking here. Chimpanzees do have complex traditions. I'm talking about religion as a consequence of those traditions, and eventually leading to primitive things like burial with gold and silver on top of Neanderthals. I'm not even sure. I don't think it's gold and silver. By the way, I don't have that card on me. But
so, do you think our ancestors prior did not mourn their dead?
It doesn't have anything to do with the mourning of dead. It has to do with a belief with afterlife anxiety, or the belief that their ancestors. Sorry, not afterlife anxiety. That ancestors have an afterlife, right? The Neanderthals likely had a belief that ancestors had an afterlife. Meaning they believed that the dead had an afterlife. There's very disputable evidence that gorillas believe this too, but that theory has absolutely no evidence has very little evidence. So with Neanderthals, though, it is mostly agreed upon that they did, due to the fact that they treasured the dead so much. They put things on. They put gold. They put silver on the dead so much. So it is likely true that Neanderthals had the sense of afterlife, believed in an afterlife.
Okay. I mean, like I said, I'm not an expert in that field, so I don't know exactly all of the information concerning that, but I still don't see how this means that religion is necessary for society or for individuals. I mean, the fact that there are plenty of atheists out there that are perfectly fine without religion kind of seems to dispute the idea that you need religion in your life.
Well, again, higher religion is associated with less depression and things like that. And I would say that a lot of
I got to push back against that, because there are the studies done on that particular aspect of religion have shown very little correlation between the two.
They have. I can show you.
No. They've shown. I found two different studies that showed that in one study atheists fared just slightly better, and in another study they fared slightly worse. So the results are all over the place, but ultimately they show that there's no difference. So I'm not exactly sure what study that you found that has shown this, but from what I can tell, the evidence is not solid on the effects of religion on individuals.
But I can name you 30 studies which find at least 30. I can send them all to you. Which find that those who prime lack of belief in an ultimate meaning tend to have much higher rates of depression. It's like a common thing. Meta-analysis have also confirmed this among the multiple studies and research that have found that those who prime lack of belief in meaning tend to have much higher rates of depression. The same thing with because a lot of atheists prime belief in moral realism. So that's kind of a meaning structure in and of itself, and religion is just one of those examples that is even more beneficial. Is I argue the most beneficial meaning structure, due to the fact that those who have God encountering experiences while having LSD or while having hallucinogens tend to report high rates of spiritual significance and personal meaning. So this is kind of a question of, is there an ultimate meaning, and is there an ultimate morality? Is there an objective morality? And I argue that those things have much lower rates of depression, and the opposite has a higher rate of spiritual significance and personal meaning in life.
Well, if atheists are the ones with higher rates of depression, then I think that's probably due to the fact that religious people alienate them.
How do we know that's true, though? Could you find me a study?
How do we know that's true?
As far as I know,
it's all. I mean, no. This is a common thing in our society. Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons both exclude people that leave their faith, regardless of whether or not they're atheist or just some other version of Christian. They cut out people all over the country in the United States. Whenever somebody decides to leave their religion and become an atheist, they are ostracized and they are alienated by the community that they were once in. So I think that you're confusing the fact that religious communities provide each other with support and that atheists don't have that support anymore. I think that you're confusing that distinction with the idea that just because somebody has religion in their life means that they're less likely to be depressed. Yeah. How do you explain the rates of suicide in the Christian community? Like the fact that Christianity, people that are Christians commit suicide at all seems to work against you in this instance.
It has nothing to do with ostracization of atheists. I was talking about something completely different. I was talking about priming belief in an afterlife, which is very complicated. I don't think it has to do. Of course, I agree that atheists are generally ostracized in our society, and that's definitely not a good thing to do. But I think that we're talking more so about an talking about an afterlife and a belief in objective meaning, because atheists have what? Well,
I was just going to ask something real quick, because I've heard this. I do not understand why religious apologists push this idea that if you don't have a concept of like an afterlife, of heaven or anything like that, why does that inherently mean that atheists just lose meaning in life? Because I know for me personally, and this is anecdotal, but me personally, I found more meaning in my life that since there was, since I came to the conclusion that there was no heaven. That puts an immense amount of meaning on this life for me. Now, what I don't understand is, why do religious people put an immense amount of value on this life when you have an eternity afterwards? To me, it seems like the two should be flipped if you were to represent them accurately, because if you take away this eternity of an afterlife, that means that this life has an increased, like an infinitely increased amount of value.
I'm talking about objective meaning, not subjective meaning. Of course, everyone can have subjective meaning. You can have subjective meaning in helping atheist causes. I can have subjective meaning in toilet paper. I don't know, whatever. But we're talking about a specific objective meaning in an objective afterlife, for instance. So if you look at the studies, we're specifically talking about objective meaning, not necessarily just I have subjective meaning. Anyone can have subjective meaning. The point is that it's about objective meaning in and of itself.
Well, so what you mean is absolute meaning, not objective.
Yeah, I think those are. Could you explain to me why those are different necessarily?
Well, yeah. So absolute meaning means that there's some kind of absolute foundation out there that's
right. So absolute.
Hold on. That's unchanging. That lays down this moral code, moral law, this absolute meaning. But objective, you can be objective once you have some kind of end goal in mind. Like you can be objective about something once you have a desired outcome that you want to reach. So you can be objective, like about your own subjective morality. You can be objective about it as long as you adhere to the end goal that you're trying to reach with your morality. So
why have this end goal? Why have this end goal? I guess that would be the main question that would arise in people's minds. Like, what is the meaning of this?
I didn't say everybody had the same goal. I didn't say everybody had to have the same goal. I'm just saying you just.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Why should we have this end goal? The question is, what is the foundation for this end goal? Does this end goal actually have any meaning, or am I just making it up and just going along with it? That's
everybody
the reason
just makes up their own goal. I mean, a lot of people have the same goal, sure. Like all Christians have the same goal of getting into heaven. And so whatever that means for your morality to get into heaven, then that's, if that means that you take up the position of all homosexuals have to die, then that being objective about it, you would also have to adhere to that.
No, the life having meaning thing, as far as Christianity goes, I guess the reason that it's specific to Christianity is because Christianity is about the belief that you should love and therefore have good deeds. Of course, I'm going to have disputes with Guzman on this again, but Christianity is kind of the idea that you have to love and do good actions and do good deeds in order to get into heaven. Now, that sounds like a primitive idea, then when you think about it, it makes sense why there's lower rates of depression, lower rates of pessimism and hopelessness in one's life, and why there's lower sustained personal meaning, a personal meaning and spiritual significance.
You see, I have to disagree with that. And I realize that you probably have several papers behind you in order to support it. But, I really just do not see atheists, being the ones that have less meaning in their life. Can you explain to me why Christians think that this life has so much value when you have an eternity in the afterlife?
Because your actions in this life are what matter. It's not if you have faith and you just go Jeffrey Dahmer on everybody, then that makes no sense. And that's my problem with a strictly Protestant or Baptist worldview. The point is that if you love, if you have this absolute sense of love that Jesus talks about, then then when you go to heaven, you can see things more clearly. Life is much clearer in the supernatural realm. If you don't, then nothing is clear. You're blinded by your own narcissism, selfishness, machiavellianism, whatever your bad value is. That is
okay. Well, what it comes down to is that if atheists are the ones that are more depressed and have higher rates of mental health issues, I do directly blame religion for that, because a majority of atheists out there used to be religious. And because they were religious, they were ingrained with certain things that the religion taught them. And leaving the religion is not like, as soon as you become an atheist, it's not just like, oh, hell, the fear of hell goes away. All of the toxic things that religion teaches you does not just go away. Those things stick around. So if atheists are the ones with higher depression, then it's directly because of the toxic things that religion teaches them and teaches them to feel about themselves.
Yes, but again, as I said before, I wasn't talking specifically about atheism versus Christianity. That was not my main point. My main point was specifically about just questions that lead to the meta-ethical answer of moral realism, moral relativism, and nihilism, existential nihilism, belief in meaning in life, that kind of thing. It wasn't necessarily just a strictly religion, Christianity, Protestantism, Christianity versus atheists who maybe get fed up with some of the doctrines and leaves. That's a different story. And then I would agree that definitely suicide rates are driven by religious alienation and isolation. I'm only talking about a specific thing, as I said before.
So would your conclusion be that it's better to be religious just so that you're not ostracized?
My conclusion is that placing higher value in religion can help you. It helps in many ways beneficially, both to the society and the individual. So the individual belief helps both society and individual. That's kind of what I meant. So yeah, that's what I mean specifically.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but
hold on. Okay, so we've actually passed the agreed about 45 minutes of open discussion.
Mm-hmm.
We went over about like 4 minutes. I think that was fine. You guys were having a good conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys wanted to do closing statements.
I think that if they want to go a little bit more, I'm flexible. I think I'm not sure about John's schedule. If you guys wanted to, you could go for like a couple more minutes, and then we'll jump into Q&A.
Well, if I could just ask a couple questions,
Sure.
Because what Greg said was that if you're if the more religious you are, the better it is for society. But it seems to me like the more religious a society is, the less peaceful and more violent it seems to be, at least empirically. And I get that you say that it's because of secret atheists in the society or people that just claim that they're Christian and stuff. But I think that hedging your argument on this speculation, those particular speculations, kind of weakens it, because your statement is that the more religious you are, the better off you are. But the only benefit that I can really see in your argument for as far as being more religious is that you're less ostracized. You have a bigger support group. You have a support group, because a lot of times atheists lose their support groups and they lose their friends, and so they're left alone. And so it seems like what you're saying to me is that it's better to be religious because that's what everybody else is, and that's how you're and by lying to yourself, I say lying to yourself, but telling yourself that you're a Christian or believing in something just because you think it makes you better seems to just inherently make you better. Like I just don't see the empirical data that would support that particular argument.
So I think that was kind of that's not what I was saying. I was saying if an individual believes in religion, then that helps both society and the individual itself. It's not if a society is inherently religious, because if a society pushes religion, then the Streisand effect, I wasn't talking about secret atheists or secret Christians. That's not at all what I was talking about. What I was talking about,
those things.
No, that's not. I was not saying that due to the fact that there's secret atheists and secret Christians. I was saying there's many different factors that may play into it, like the Streisand effect, like the desire to go away from something when it is pushed onto you. Would you not agree that if something put to you, if you push something onto society, that society will want to push back, more than ever? Right.
Well, what I know is that you literally said that just because a society is highly religious, that doesn't mean that their that their religious saliency isn't high, and that there's secret atheists in there, and there's people that have bad religion, which we're not really distinguishing bad religion from good religion. Mm-hmm. We're just talking about religion in general. And the nations that I talked about that are highly religious are not ones that push or force religion on people. They're not theocracies, because I mean there's only one theocracy I think still left in the world, and that's like Iran. And Iran was in
Saudi Arabia too.
Huh?
I think Saudi Arabia too.
I don't know. I think I'm not sure about Saudi Arabia. I know definitely Iran is still a theocracy. But regardless,
I was talking about the individual ascribes to more orthodox beliefs, not the society. Because when it comes to the society, then it's kind of a different issue. In terms of society, you don't know, because there's only correlation. The correlation that you have brought up.
Well, yeah, but as you mentioned earlier in support of your position, you said that societies are made up of individuals. So if the individuals are highly religious, then they in turn make the society highly religious. So unless these nations that are highly religious are made up of primarily secret atheists, then or maybe not just secret atheists, but like loose religious people, I guess. But I mean, still, the aspects of religion that you're talking about that you claim, make a person better. You don't have to be extremely religious or orthodox in order for those effects to change your behavior. So it seems like you're kind of mixing it up there.
Well, these studies say that it does, though. I mean, if you change from an atheist to an orthodox, obviously, if there's generally more speaking, we don't know if these people who have placed higher value in religion. I mean, generally speaking, when you're 3, you don't probably place a high value on religion. Later on in life, it comes. So due to that fact, I mean, of course, we can't measure this scientifically, but due to that fact, we would even assume that those who are generally speaking at some point don't place high value on religious or have low religious saliency, and in turn have higher religious saliency, will generally be less inclined to commit crime, as I showed with the study. So it seems pretty logical that would follow.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's hard for me to base like my opinion on just one particular study. I mean, you claim that religion makes people less likely to commit crimes, but I'm still I'm still really bothered by the fact that an overwhelming majority of people in prisons that have committed crimes and are repeat offenders are Christian. Or not, well, I shouldn't say Christian, but are religious, right? And so you would think that the more religious a person becomes, they're less likely to commit crimes. But I mean, I see highly religious people committing crimes all the time.
Yes.
I really don't think religion plays a pretty big factor in it.
Okay, so again, as I said before, the majority of people in the U.S. are Christians. So obviously, there would be a lot more Christians in prison right now, and a lot more, such Muslims and atheists, because Muslims and atheists take up a smaller majority of the U.S. population. Of course, now that's rising, but again, my thing would trump yours, because Mine is more specific to the kind that we're talking about. Value on religion is more of an element than just religion. If you say right now that you're religious, if you just utter those words and you claim to be one, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you have become a religious person necessarily, right?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that it makes you highly religious, but I would say that if you claim a belief in God, in a specific version of God, that does mean that you're religious. Do you think that there are Christians out there that profess a belief in God and wholeheartedly believe in God, but are not scared of hell?
I mean, yes, but there's an extremely high correlation between those two. Of course, you could find anecdotal examples, but I guess this also plays into the meaning factor. There's different factors. There's the meaning factors, there's the belief in afterlife factor, and there's tons of other factors that come into consideration when considering this. I've only considered two, which are the meaning factor and the heaven and hell factor. And I think those are currently the most important because there's the highest correlation between high religious saliency and belief in meaning that would logically follow, and a belief in heaven and hell, which would not logically follow, but would have an extremely high correlation.
Okay. Do you think that atheists just don't have meaning in their lives?
No, I think most atheists actually assume a meaning structure in their life. But a lot of them, when answered meta-ethical questions, not directly like, are you a moral realist or a moral relativist? So there was a study done. So they were asked, robbing a bank in order to pay for a holiday is wrong. And then the people would respond, they say yes, no. And then they were informed that another participant actually thought that it would be okay to rob a bank in order to pay for an expensive holiday. And now they were asked questions, do you believe that person was wrong in his belief? Or do you believe, it's just a matter of society and culture? I think a lot of atheists would choose the moral realism part. I frankly don't see it making any sense why all of a sudden that would be just a matter of opinion, why robbing a bank in order to pay for an expensive holiday is okay. So in some sense, a lot of atheists do accept meaning structures, do accept morality structures, and do accept these kinds of structures that I'm talking about. I'm specific, but it kind of seems like religion in general is the best meaning structure rather than a completely secular belief.
Well, it kind of seems like you're making the argument that religion is the only one with a meaning structure. I feel like you're taking the route of atheists are just stealing from religious people.
No, I didn't say that. Why do you?
No, I didn't say that you said that. I just said that the way that you explained all that makes it seem like you're going down the route of atheists steal, part of their worldview from religious people.
It's not that they steal. It's just that the logical consequence from our evolutionary biology, as I've demonstrated, the meaning structures, the tradition structures, those things just don't randomly go away due to a change in belief. No. Those things are still innate in us. And I think religion, I believe it does a better job of that due to the psilocybin mushroom study, then that I believe that religion is in general more beneficial to society than a secular worldview. That's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of what I'm saying.
You see, I don't see that because I see the meaning structures and all of that. I see that developing first rather than religion developing first. So it just seems that religion is just an encapsulation of one particular meaning structure. And religion doesn't have the trademark on meaning structures or anything like that. So, I mean, it just seems like religion has one and it's named, and that's why it's better. So the meaning structure that I'm claiming, the only meaning structure that I'm talking about, I'm saying that atheism cannot, that an atheist worldview or a lack of belief in God cannot adequately provide a good meaning structure. Whereas I think that I'll argue that religion and tradition can provide adequately good meaning structures. Okay, what is your evidence to support that? Because, I mean, I have a perfectly fine meaning structure. There are plenty of other ones out there. I mean, just because you don't believe in a religion per se doesn't mean that you don't have a meaning structure. I just think that means that you're open to other meaning structures.
Well, neurotheological studies have found that those who have experienced God-encountering experiences have sustained significantly higher spiritual significance and meaning. We already talked about. I don't think we probably addressed this, but we talked about this. But yeah, again, those who experienced religious experiences experienced much stronger levels of meaning in life and spiritual. Yeah, significance / meaning. That's what the study found. I can send it to you if you would like.
I mean, sure, but I really don't think that one study on people eating shrooms is indicative of atheists or those without religion.
It wasn't just about shrooms. It was many different meta-analyses and cohort studies that found that and randomized control trials, not cohort studies, that found that those who experience God-encountering experiences tend to have higher levels of, as I stated before, meaning in life.
Okay, but still, I'm not seeing the correlation between those studies and atheists just not having meaning in their lives.
Well, I'm talking about, a spiritual experience, a religious experience would not entail atheism, right?
Well, no.
Well, a religious experience causes people to believe in meaning. If suddenly their meaning in life is going up and their spiritual significance is going up, and that entails religious belief, correct? A religious experience, right?
Well, no. I mean, just because they do experience those things for whatever brief moment that they experience them does not mean that atheists do not also experience either spiritual or have spiritual experiences or have meaning to their lives. I mean, you're showing that religion increases those feelings. Sure, I can agree to that, but it doesn't mean that the converse is true, that atheists cannot feel that spirit, like that level of spirituality or meaning in their life just because they don't have religion.
I'm not saying I mean, theoretically, of course they can, but the studies all indicate that those who do experience a religious conversion due to religious experiences generally have these kinds of meaning levels that the regular average Joe does not.
Okay, true, but like I said before, that does not mean that atheists also can. That doesn't mean that atheists can't have those same levels of meaning and spirituality.
I mean, of course, theoretically, but there's no correlation. There's an extremely high correlation, meaning that most atheists cannot experience that level, and there's no studies to indicate that they can. I mean, these studies show the opposite image, right?
No. That's not what it is. Again, I don't know the study that you're bringing up. I haven't been able to look at it or anything like that, and I can't do it right now on the stream. But what you're saying here is that religion or these religious experiences causes these things. And I would agree that those religious experiences can cause those things, but that does not mean that you can't attain those same feelings and experiences in a different way that does not involve religion. That narrow of a study cannot be used to say that atheists can't feel those same levels of things.
Well, those who are religious experience much higher. Again, I don't think you're getting my point exactly. I'm talking about
I get your point. I'm saying you're wrong.
But I'm talking about higher level, and it clearly indicates that I'm right. These higher levels, that they experience higher levels of it. And I'm talking about higher levels. I'm not talking about a theoretical can or cannot. I mean, that's not at all what I'm talking about. The fact that they generally experience higher levels, and that is a desirable trait, higher spiritual meaning, spiritual significance, and meaning in life. If that is right, and that higher levels are more than associated, like literally cause it, then we can make a conclusion that is therefore better to be religious. Logically,
you cannot come to that conclusion given the statements that you made.
It inductively follows.
No, it does not.
Okay, so if
We're just going to fundamentally disagree on this. I mean, there's no point in going round and round in circles. I mean, I guess that we can go into the Q&A, but ultimately it comes down to you're very hard up on religion being an inherent benefit to somebody, and I really don't think that that's the case. We both have studies on both of our sides that show our particular points. So,
right. So I think we're kind of going in a circle at this point. I think it was good. I think this was a really good discussion, though. If you would agree, I think we did kind of open each other's minds on this issue. So, yeah.
Indeed. Were you gonna say something, John?
Well, I was just going to say, I'm sorry if I get a little heated at certain points. I didn't mean to. I just get a little passionate whenever I'm in these kind of discussions.
Of course. I feel passionate too.